Well, hey, my name's Josh Whitlow, and this is my beautiful wife, Crystal Whitlow, and we're the lead pastors of Heights Church in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, we planted in 2015.
February 8th, 2015, almost 10 years ago this year. Well, growing up, I had zero desire to be a pastor at all. I grew up in a family of pastors, actually on my mom and my dad's side. I'm a fifth generation pastor or ministry leader in some way, shape, or form. That caused me to go on this journey of discovering what God wanted and what God had for my life. Actually, in 2001, I enlisted to join the Marine Corps. I got to deploy twice, and God kind of used that time in the Marine Corps to change my life physically and spiritually, and kind of course correct, I think, my life in a trajectory that changed for forever.
Yeah, so once you got out of the Marines, I stayed working in the corporate world, and you just started serving your dad. We just jumped on staff and we were there. We served under your dad for 10 years, and then your brother transitioned the church, took over the church, and we served them for 10 years.
It was a season of fasting and prayer, and we knew that God was stirring and doing something. We had no idea. We had never heard of ARC. We had never heard of how to plant a church. My dad planted his church in '82, and that was the old school way. That was our plan. We didn't know what to do, but we knew that God was leading us and calling us to plant a new church. We didn't know how, we didn't know where,
We didn't know when.
we didn't know when. And so we just kind of submitted that process and this dream to the elders of the church, all of our pastors.
And then I think your brother was like, he was the lead pastor, and he's like, I'm sending you to ARC. And we're like, what's ARC? And so yes, there's a training in 2 weeks, so we jumped on the plane. And
I remember he was like, if you're going to plant a church, he knows me very well. He's like, you cannot do this without some people that are going to give you a playbook and help, and that's exactly, so we went to ARC.
We went to ARC in February, and then I remember in March, everyone was like, where are you moving? And we're like, we have no idea. What's the name of your church? I don't know. I'm pregnant.
Our first ARC conference, literally everybody was like, that's so exciting, because it's all celebrating church planting. Where?
They've been dreaming for years.
What's your website? And we're like, we don't have a website. We don't know where. We don't. There are people that had social media done and a marketing campaign and strategy, and we were holding on, felt like by the curtails of like, we just got to get through this process, and that's
when we went to Pastor Dill, and we found out where we were going. And then after we found out where we were going, we finalized the process, and we put our house up on the market, sold it on the first day that we put it up, and then we were moving. We knew we were moving to Richmond. We sold our house 3 days later. We were in Richmond.
And we ran not only the play that ARC was able to I think really extract out of our hearts the call and desire that we felt God had been leading us to. They were brilliant at enabling and equipping us to be able to do everything that we really felt that God had called us to do. So like we started in our backyard, a white tent. We had, I think, 14 people come to our very first interest meeting. I know that's tiny nowadays, but back then we were just running around just like that was the greatest thing on planet Earth.
They were all strangers too.
And you just only survived those days with great appetizers, a little bit music that's a little bit too loud because you got to get over the awkwardness, because you got the Home Depot cart guy here, a cashier from Guitar Center over here, and everybody's got to get along all at the same time. And man, but looking back at those times, just so thankful for that process. Started in a beautiful high school, and we were able to be there for a year, and then at the end of the first year they told us that they weren't, things were shifting and we had to move, so we moved from a gorgeous high school to a tiny elementary school off a back country road. And I remember in my mind just looking at Chris and being like, this is not going the right direction. We're like literally going backwards. All of our friends are moving to bigger spaces, shinier spaces, and we're meeting now in a cafetorium. I think that's kind of been a theme in the story that God's done, has just been movement. It doesn't have to be perfect, but stay full of faith and risk and trust God that He's gonna reward that faith. In our mind, it was gonna go backwards, and God just breathed on that thing. And it continued to grow, and we want God to continue to do miraculous things in our church and in our life. Then we better be asking for some miraculous things in and for our life, for our church family. And so in January of 2018, we started walking around this entire 11-acre shopping center. And back then we weren't just walking around it to ask God for the walls to come down and help us purchase it. Back then too, we were walking around praying that no drug deals were going to happen, nobody was going to get stabbed at our front door. Yeah. This was the area that we knew God had planted us and called us to. And we didn't know that it would take 4 years. Yeah. But we knew in 2018, we started walking around this place, that God was getting ready to do something unbelievable again.
I feel like we're just getting started on what's going to happen in the next 10 years. Now that we have this building, we're starting a school this year. Sometimes we're like, why are we starting a school? But I know God has something incredible, so much bigger than we can see. Reaching the next generation is our heartbeat.
There's this temptation to focus so much on now, because there's so much to fix right now. But at the same time, it's also impossible for us to not look ahead and say, God, if you've done this in the first 10 years, what in the world, God, can you do in the next 10 years? As we launch this academy, God, how many grades are you going to, what do you have for this academy? What do you have for our summer camp programs that we want to do?
Grocery.
The Heights grocery locations that we want to have all throughout the city. What we do know is that every single time we risk and that we dare to dream of impossible things is the only time in our story where we've seen God do the impossible. When we actually put ourselves in positions where he has to do something, he has to move. And so if I thought the Marines was risky and scary, there's nothing like being on this journey of following God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And when you do risk it and you do believe that God can do the impossible, it's just that excitement of watching him actually do it.